Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. What we have for you today is breaking news in the case of the shooting of the CEO, Brian Thompson. At this time, a perpetrator has been grabbed in a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. From a law enforcement source we received, the man being questioned was picked up in McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, after an employee thought he resembled the man in the NYPD's photos and called the cops. Multiple law enforcement officials briefed on the situation told this to CNN. Altoona police responded to the call and picked up the man, who they say is 26 years old, and searched him. In the search, they found a gun with a suppressor like the one that was used in the homicide and multiple fake IDs, including one that the NYPD believes was used by the suspect in New York City. The suspect was in possession of some documents that the investigators also want to examine as potentially relating to motive. Through further details on the documents were not clear. Altoona police are waiting for the NYPD detectives who are currently en route to the location. So this is huge news. As happens many times in these investigations, we have to slow down. We have to listen. We have to see what they have in this situation. The Altoona police will not question this suspect. They will wait for the NYPD detectives to arrive on the scene. The only way they would question him is if he starts running at the mouth, if he starts making admissions and confessions. Then they would read him Miranda and they would question him. Other than that, they will just detain him and await for the NYPD detectives to arrive on the scene. We don't have any information as to how the NYPD detectives, I would imagine aviation will be flying them to Altoona, PA, via helicopter. Anyway, folks, hold on to your hats, hold on to your seats. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
Folks, joining me today on this huge story, this breaking news story, is retired NYPD detective and straight out of Brooklyn, Detective Phil Grimaldi. Welcome to the show, Phil.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you for having me. It's a good day today, and we kind of felt that this was going to happen this quickly, so let's get into it.
You know, Phil, there's been so much attention on this also for some of the wrong reasons, in my opinion, and a heavy-duty criticism against the NYPD. Why don't they have him yet? And we explained to our audience and any people that were watching this show that investigation takes time. But the NYPD did everything right. And guess what? A civilian, based on how these pictures were just flooded on media, a civilian recognized the guy, and he did everything right too. If you see something, say something. That's our mantra. He called the police, they grabbed him, and it seems like they have hit the jackpot. Phil?
Basically, Bill, we talked about it in all 5 of our shows. That photo needed to be circulated through the media. I said that the media is our friend. It's one of the assets we will utilize in a case like this. If I was on the case, if you were on the case, we'd want to get that photo out there. Sure enough, lo and behold, treasure trove of information gets out there, that photo, and he's taken into custody. Not only is he taken into custody, we believe he was carrying the firearm similar to the one used. Also fake IDs. There's going to be a major investigation into this guy's background. The one thing that I want to know is, did he act alone or was he working with someone else? That's going to be very important to figure out. It's just shocking to me that he went back to his life supposedly, or I don't know if he comes from Pennsylvania, but it looks like he went back into his life and he's still carrying a gun unless he's on the run in Pennsylvania. That's the couple of things that we have to figure out. With these fake identifications, I think that that's all going to have to be deciphered. Who is this guy? Where is he from? Why was he carrying the firearm still? I was of the belief that he took the firearm back with him when he left New York City, because I felt that he traveled by bus with the firearm and he would leave with that. I wouldn't want to leave that firearm behind as evidence because it's such a unique firearm. So I did feel that this would be connected to him. And some of the things that we said, they played out just as we said them, not trying to throw, flowers at ourselves, but we have the experience, we have the knowledge, and we kind of thought that this is the way the case would be going. Just a tidbit, him carrying that firearm. Bill, you and I talked about it earlier this morning, how if that firearm wasn't found, even though there's a lot of circumstantial evidence, that this was not going to be a very, very easy case to try if the firearm hadn't been found. Now I think we're of the opinion, with the firearm being found, if it is in fact the one that was used to kill the CEO, Brian Thompson, it's going to make the case so much stronger.
Phil, getting the firearm is like hitting the jackpot on a slot machine. It was so important that they got this firearm. Now, we may be getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. However, how many people are walking around fitting the description of the perpetrator, and then he's identified by an employee of a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. The police stop him, and he has a firearm like the one used in New York with a suppressor on it, and then he's got fake IDs. The identification now will be of the firearm. They have 3 spent shells with extractor marks and the fire pin mark, the firing pin on the on the primer. So those are 2 things right there that they have will identify this firearm. So amazing work. I mean, the Altoona police, great job. That individual at the McDonald's that called the police, kudos, outstanding job. I want to play this. This is ABC News, their live report.
Sources tell ABC News police in Pennsylvania are questioning a man in connection to the murder of United Healthcare's CEO. This comes as ABC News has obtained new video showing Brian Thompson's killer waiting for him moments before the shooting. Our senior investigative correspondent, Aaron Katersky, is here with the latest. Aaron, what are you hearing about this man being questioned now in Pennsylvania?
The NYPD is sending detectives to Altoona, Pennsylvania now, Diane, hoping to get involved with this lead. I'm told that the authorities have taken this person into custody. We don't have an ID on him, but they've taken him into custody for questioning in connection with the shooting death of Brian Thompson. One suspicion that the authorities appear to have, this person who's now in police custody in Pennsylvania has a gun that is similar to the weapon that was used to kill the United Healthcare CEO, according to law enforcement sources. So they are now questioning this person. The NYPD is on its way, hoping that this is going to be a significant break in the case, but we just don't know yet.
And could be especially significant given this wasn't just a regular handgun that you might expect to be used in a crime like this.
It was a distinctive gun. It's bolt action, which means it has to be manually cycled. Then the long barrel makes the police think that this is some type of veterinary weapon, perhaps used on farms or ranches. Not what you might see in an assassination-style killing. So they've been very focused on the gun. They have not found the murder weapon yet, I'm told. So if this is the case, this could either just be a guy has a similar gun, right, and that's it, or it could be something else.
And talk to me about this video that ABC obtained, because you say it shows this suspect, whoever he is, clearly waiting for Thompson.
And this is why police came out right away and said this was a targeted thing, because the video shows him loitering around the Hilton Hotel. Other people go by and he's unbothered. Only when Brian Thompson comes into his view do you see him scooting across 54th Street, approaching from behind and opening fire. So the authorities have asked for patience here, Diane. Even with a killer on the loose, they do not believe there is a danger to the public at large.
All right, Aaron Katersky.
So there's a brief story. I think they said a few things that are inaccurate. All right. First of all, I believe the only thing that the Pennsylvania police would ask this individual who they stopped and who is now under arrest is perhaps his pedigree information. The Pennsylvania police will not be interviewing him, interrogating him, because that will be the job of the NYPD detectives who are en route. Hopefully they're en route by aviation, by helicopter, and they'll arrive pretty soon. When a lot of people in the chat are questioning, oh, is that the gun? They will know 100% whether or not this is the gun very shortly. They will do a ballistics test. They will do a brass catcher test on the spent shells that were ejected. They will do a firearms test on the suppressor, all types of things that will 100% identify that gun. So all you ballistics experts in the chat, this will be identified. And again, remember we spoke about two identifiers on the spent shells: the extractor marks on the side of the spent shell and the firing pin mark on the primer. That is so identifiable to the specific gun that it came from. Phil.
Yeah, I want to just expand on that, Billy. When a firearm is fired, the bullet exits the barrel and goes towards the target. The shell casing, in this case, he extracted it by pulling the slide back. Now, that shell casing, as you just said, it has specific striations on it, which are unique to that firearm. Those are little scratches. When the shell casing exits, it makes almost like a fingerprint onto that shell casing. There's also the way that the firing pin hits the primer on the back of the bullet. Those are unique to the firearm. So that's what they will be looking at. They also have around the bullet, the actual bullet that will be recovered from the victim's body, if in fact it was, unless it exited a body and is not found. But I think that the bullets will be found inside. Sometimes they are so deformed that they're unable to figure out if it came through the barrel of that specific gun. That may not be the case in this specific shooting. So now we have the striations and the markings on the lead of the bullet that will be unique to that firearm. So those are two different things that will be able to be examined, and they will be able to tell if that is in fact the gun that was used in this homicide. Now, getting back to some of the other things, whether or not he was stalking the victim before the day of the incident, we know that there's video of him mulling about, as that reporter just said, but yet when he sees Mr. Thompson, that's when he goes into action and he goes behind him and fires the shots. There's also video of him before the incident coming out of the subway. Now, did he duck into the subway and just come out because he was already in the area? Or did he take the subway from where he was staying at the hostel? And then the bike is located across the street in that very large alleyway in between the two streets next to the hotel where the victim was staying. So all of those things have to be figured out. There is video cameras in that alleyway. We will know whether or not that bike was placed there beforehand by him, by someone else, and we will know how he got it, retrieved it, and exited. So those things, they're not talking about all of that right at this minute. They haven't talked about it in the 6 days that this incident occurred. So we're going to be finding out these things as the case develops. The one thing I think is very, very important, Bill, you brought it up, the police in Pennsylvania will be asking him about his pedigree information. Now, they arrested him for having a gun on him, allegedly, or they took him into custody. They don't have details of the case to question him about the case in New York. They will wait for the detectives to get there from New York to question him about that. And again, he may invoke his right to counsel and not make any statements. That remains to be seen.
Phil, good point. But Tamara Allison from the chat, he's just being questioned. No, he's under arrest because they stopped him based on reasonable suspicion that he fit the description of the shooter in New York. So they stopped, question, and frisk the suspect. During the stop, question, and frisk, they discover a firearm. Do you think he's pulling out a firearm permit? I doubt that, right? So right there's a felony. Having a suppressor on that gun is a federal felony. So he's under arrest. If this turned out not to be the guy, he would still be under arrest. And again, the news gave a couple of inaccuracies. The Altoona police, fantastic job, great job. They do what police do all over this nation. They didn't know a lot about this case. They stopped, question, and frisk, and it appears they got the perpetrator in this case. So, but they will wait. Again, they will wait for NYPD detectives. They will bring him to a police facility, and they will wait. The most I think they will ask him is pedigree information, name, age, date of birth, that type of thing. They're not going to question him about anything relative to this case. This is from Fox News. I'll play this.
No, can I make a quick comment before you go to that?
Killing of the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, a man who matches the description of the gunman, has now been taken into custody in the state of Pennsylvania. Alexis McAdams has the update. Alexis.
Hey, Harris. Well, we never know exactly how quickly these things are going to move. All morning, I've been in Central Park as these dive teams have been doing everything they can to find what I was told was the weapon because they couldn't track it down. Now, investigators and NYPD police sources, Harris, telling Fox News that they believe they found a man who matches that same description of the gunman who killed that CEO in Midtown Manhattan. They found him at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. OK, that's like a 5-hour drive from where we are right now. We knew that the person of interest had possibly hopped on a bus and fled town. Now we're being told they believe they have that person of interest in Altoona, Pennsylvania. So we kind of talked about this earlier when I checked in with you. Person of interest, suspect, they're keeping it at person of interest right now, and they're just saying he matches the description. But not only does he match the description for people watching at home, he also, according to investigative sources who are telling Fox News, he had the weapon they believe was used in this murder in his pocket. So this is what happens, I'm told, from police, and it's still developing. But this person's at this McDonald's in Altoona. We've been putting these pictures out all across the country because it's been a nationwide manhunt. So they've been asking people, do you recognize this man in the photo? We want to talk to him. We think he was linked to this ongoing investigation. Well, somebody, Harris, said that McDonald's in Pennsylvania recognized him, called it into local police, and here we are right now. So if this ends up panning out and they are going to question this guy in Pennsylvania, we could have a huge break in this case. This comes as that CEO is having a private funeral right now in Minneapolis area where he was from. He was just in town for business where he was gunned down. Back out here live, you know, the question is, what's the motive at this time? Could it be linked to his job? Yeah. What, you know, what exactly was
Alexis,
that all about? Yeah.
I want to bring my team in who's with me now so we can kind of work through all of the great reporting that you've just done. A suspected assassin was located, seen, witnesses were able to make a match at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania. And so, Andrew, I come to you first because he'll be extradited back to New Jersey. I don't even know if you call it that because we basically have like one state down shore, like Jersey Shore. Like as you go far south in Jersey, it is Pennsylvania. So talk to me about what happens next to him.
Well, he'll be undoubtedly extradited to New York. We have to make sure it's the right suspect, right? They have pieces right now that suggest that it's him. They're going to bring him back here. Then the prosecution begins, and that's a slow process. We can anticipate an indictment and other pieces along.
Folks, just again, the news gave you incorrect information. They have to bring him before a magistrate in the town that he was arrested in. And then they will ask if he will waive extradition. If he does not waive extradition, the NYPD cannot take him back to New York until there's an order for him to go back to New York. But that's what they're waiting for. They can't just take him now, kidnap and take him back to New York City. They have to do it the legal way. And that's the media just then given some incorrect facts, but all in all, they're doing a pretty good job.
Along the way.
How impressed are you by the fact that we didn't hear much about the DNA on the bicycle, all the places that we know there would be DNA? Even if he had on gloves, he had to sit. Right. He was, you know, he was doing all sorts of things and leaving the backpack behind. No matter how careful you are, you're not perfect as a human being. How impressed are you that none of that really leaked into the public, none of what they were finding? And I know you don't want it to, but sometimes people find things out. Does that make this case against him stronger?
Well, I think there's going to be a lot more that we learn about what the police actually had access to that they didn't let us know about. I'm most interested to hear if there's accomplices or other people either before the fact or after the fact that are somehow involved. And that could be something that the FBI or the DOJ gets involved in. He may be looking at criminal prosecution both in New York as well as federally if he's committing crimes across state borders.
How does Minnesota come into play? That United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, shot in the back, assassinated outside the Hilton Convention Hotel in the middle of Manhattan. And you heard our reporter there, Alexis McAdams, saying that funeral services are getting underway. How does that state play a role?
Well, not anything directly. I think that what we have to look at is how the killer was connected potentially to the company. Is this an insider? Is this somebody who had perhaps formerly worked there? Are they connected with people who was feeding him information?
Interesting.
So that's the larger scope of what will be looked at.
So, look, could this not be the guy? I think there's a very small chance that this is not the guy. Don't forget, the police responded based on an employee of a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, recognizing him from the picture. Now, the Altoona police respond. They stop the guy. They give him what we refer to in the police business as a toss. During the toss, and I'll use the correct law enforcement vernacular, they stop, question, and frisk him, and they recover this gun with the suppressor and then all kinds of fake IDs. So, yes, we have to wait to see the results of this investigation. But at this point, it looks pretty damn strong. And we got this information from a law enforcement source, not from the media. So all you folks in the chat that are cursing the media, we got this from an unnamed law enforcement source. So this is pretty damn good information. Phil.
Listen, bottom line is, here's the police protocol. They get a call. We think that this guy looks like the person that's wanted for the homicide in New York. They stop, question, frisk him. They take the gun from him. They find the gun. They find the fake IDs. They're probably going to ask him questions about those things. Where'd you get this gun? Is it legal? We don't know what his responses are going to be, but those things may be very important and relative to the case at hand. Now he's got these fake IDs. Like you said, they take him to a police facility, notify New York. New York gets there. They're going to do some questioning of him. Perhaps he lawyers up. But now at this point, he's going to be detained. Like you said, he'll be brought before a magistrate in Pennsylvania. He'll have an attorney. They'll put an arrest warrant from New York in Pennsylvania saying that he's wanted in New York on these charges. And from there, he will either waive extradition or he'll fight it. It'll take a few days, and then he will be brought back to New York and he'll be charged. If, and this is a big if in fact we do believe that this is the person that's responsible for this crime, and it's very, very much seeming like that. I mean, a similar gun, the fake IDs, fits the description. That sounds like we have the right guy to make.
Well, Phil, as we said, a similar gun will be 100% confirmed by doing a ballistics test on this gun. And what you were referring to, the markings on the side of the bullets, that's called lands and grooves. And that will absolutely identify this weapon. I don't know if they have the actual projectile that went into the body of the CEO from United Healthcare, Brian Thompson.
Lands and grooves are on the exact bullet. I also talked about, if they don't have the bullet, they have the shell casings. And when it's ejected, it makes certain, they call it striations. It makes markings on the shell casing that will be unique to that firearm. So even if the bullets are not recovered or they're so deformed that they can't get the lands and grooves off of the bullet, they still have the possibility of matching those shell casings, which are found at the scene. That's very, very clear. There's 6 shell casings. 3 were fired, they were expended, and 3 were live rounds. So they're going to be able to possibly match. Just the shell casing would be good enough.
100%. So, folks, to do a short recap, according to the media, and police are questioning a man in Altoona, PA, in connection with United Healthcare CEO shooting. The man is believed to possess the same gun used by the shooter of Brian Thompson. Police are questioning, again, from what I know about investigation, the Altoona police will ask no other questions than pedigree information. They will await for the arrival of the NYPD detectives who know this case from day one, and they know all the intricacies of this case. So you need to be known. You need to know about all of this stuff in order to do an intelligent interrogation of this suspect. The sources have not said if they think the man was involved in the shooting, the outlets report, but police are questioning him because of his possession of a unique weapon police believe the shooter used to kill Thompson last week. Thompson, as we know, was shot just before 6:45 a.m. Wednesday, December 4th, by a masked gunman who was lying in wait outside the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan, according to NYPD officials said at the press conference. The shooting took place in the as the healthcare executive was entering the hotel for an investors conference, according to police. The gunman fired at least 3 shots at Thompson before fleeing on foot and bike heading towards Central Park. Thompson was pronounced dead at a local hospital a short time later. NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch told reporters that the gunman appeared to deliberately target the CEO. Police did not immediately identify a motive for the attack. However, the words deny, defend, and depose were reportedly discovered by detectives on shell casings found at the scene. Those words are similar to delay, deny, defend, a phrase about the insurance industry to describe a strategy of rejecting claims. All of those things that have upset many, many people. This is this case, he's taken on sort of the role of a folk hero to many people on social media. And so many people are receiving this, Phil, as not good, not a happy day.
That's a whole nother conversation, Billy. It kind of boggles my mind that there are people that could, promote the idea of killing the CEO in cold blood like this and be okay with it. But that's a conversation for a whole nother day. I'm more interested right now in finding out who this person is. If he lawyers up, the detectives are going to have to go into his they're going to have to do the perpology, as we refer to it. They're going to have to go into his social media, his text messaging. Does he have a cell phone on him? I've been talking about the fact that I think he had 2 cell phones. Does he have a cell phone on him? Where is he from? He may not be from Pennsylvania. One of the people put in the chat that I don't see this guy, I think based on the profile that's at hand, going into McDonald's to eat that kind of food. But if you're on the run, you go into any port during the storm. When he needs food, he might not be able to find the Starbucks where he likes his power bars and his water or coffee. So he goes into a McDonald's. The bottom line is, where's he from? Is he from Pennsylvania? I kind of getting the feeling that maybe he was on the run because he's still carrying the gun. Maybe not from Pennsylvania. Somewhere along the way, I think there was 5 or 6 stops when the bus came from Atlanta to New York. He could have gotten on somewhere else, or maybe he's from Atlanta. But when he takes off, he doesn't go back home. Perhaps he's on the run. These are the things that we're going to have to figure out. Let's hope and pray that he does make some type of a statement, that he does give information implicating himself. That would be fantastic. Maybe now he's caught. He's done so many things to leave clues about what his purpose for doing this was. Maybe he's going to talk about it. You never know, but we will find out shortly, I am sure. The detectives are probably there right now having a conversation with this individual. Let's keep our fingers crossed that more positive things happen with regard to this investigation and getting justice for Brian Thompson.
Phil, you brought up some good questions that people have, the answers to some of the questions people have. What we call, as well as when we call a victimology, which is the study of the victim, we also call a perpology, the study of the perp. And if he is in fact the perp, they have to do a deep dive
100%.
into who is this guy? Where does he live? Where does he work? Where does he go to school? Who are his associates? What is his reputation? Does he have a criminal history? All of those things will come into play, and that will give us what we call in law enforcement as the perpology, the background, the study of the potential perpetrator in this case. All of those things are very important. Now, if he decides to waive Miranda and to give a statement to police, that will let us know what his motive is. And they will still be able to find, through other investigative techniques, now that they have a name, now that they have his fingerprints, now that they have the gun, now that they have the clothing that he wore, no doubt, in a couple of these photos that they have, it's a treasure trove. It's hitting the jackpot, the investigative jackpot. And many folks, we mentioned the other day, connecting the dots, and he did a lot of work to do this murder of Brian Thompson. He did a lot of what we would call reconnaissance, reconning the location, finding out when Brian Thompson was going to leave his hotel room. Did he have someone on the inside that gave him a phone call to let him know he's leaving? That potentially could be the case.
That's my key question, Billy. I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's my key question. How did he know exactly the moment that Brian Thompson would be coming out of the one hotel, crossing the street to the other? As we know, it's been reported that meeting was scheduled for 8 o'clock, 6:44 a.m. It was scheduled for 8 a.m., 6:44 a.m. He's coming out of the hotel and going into the Hilton location where he was supposed to go to that conference, and he's attacked and killed by the perpetrator. How did he have that information? So key to the whole investigation. Very key. And all the other things, the bike. How did the bike come into play? He wasn't on the bike. He placed the bike there. Who placed the bike there? How did it get there? How did he acquire the bike? These are all questions that are vital to this investigation. I still, very, very important to me also. Is there someone else involved in this investigation, this heinous crime? Is there another perpetrator? Is there a conspiracy? That is going to play out. I'm sure we're going to get the answers to that. Right now, it looks like he's by himself in Pennsylvania in a McDonald's with the fake IDs, with the gun that's similar to the one that's used in the assassination of Brian Thompson. And we'll have to wait and see what the answers to those questions are.
100%. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then hit that subscribe button on the screen, that red subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Hit that like button. Share us with your friends and your family. If you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels. We also have a YouTube channel membership with 5 different levels. And you can join this channel by supporting us on our YouTube channel or our Patreon. Holly Berry from the chat. It seems like a lot of people get caught at fast food places, either getting them in the place or getting the plate number through the drive-through. Well, you know, folks, one of the things that we learned through this investigation is that there are cameras everywhere. You know, there are cameras, especially in New York City. I think after this case, they wish they had more cameras inside Central Park. But he was caught on cameras at so many. Look at the Starbucks photo and look at the photo that they got, which was the photo that no doubt helped in his identification from the hostel. The little smile when he was flirting with the front desk crew where he took down his face mask.
He has kind of a distinctive smile too, Billy. And then the other photos where he's in the back of the cab, you kind of see his eyebrows and his forehead there. It's kind of a distinctive look. So I don't think it was too hard for whoever it was that called the police to say this guy looks like the guy that's wanted in New York, to come up with that assertion, because there you go. There's that photo. That's kind of a unique look. And then we have the smile. Maybe he wasn't wearing the mask when he went into the McDonald's, or maybe he was, and that's why they keyed in. But whoever it was, they were right on track. And let's hope and pray that this is the guy, which we think it is. And this saga will be over at this point. We have a very dangerous individual off the street, if in fact it is him, if it is the perpetrator. And now we can go forward with the rest of the investigation, because as much as people think that the investigation, oh, it's over, they got him in custody. No, there's a lot more work to do on this case. It's probably was in the infant stages at the point when he's taken into custody. And if in fact it is him, there's a lot more work to go before this case is going to be what we call concluded.
Mary Alvarez from the chat. He wanted to get caught. Now, where are they going to get a jury to convict him? Well, in Manhattan, they're going to get a jury to convict him when they present overwhelming evidence, the firearm evidence, the DNA evidence, the photographic evidence, what he was wearing, his clothing, his fake IDs. What if he still has that fake ID on him that he used to register at the hostel?
Yeah.
How did he get that? Gee, come on, you guys watch court cases. If he has that on him, that is such a powerful piece of documentary evidence, Phil.
I'm going to go a little further. We look into his social media. We look into his text messages. We look into his cell phone. We look into his searches online. that is going to give a tremendous perspective on his profile. Was he chatting in maybe dark chat rooms about the situation with the healthcare in the country? Perhaps in those chat rooms, maybe Brian Thompson was targeted there. Those are going to be very, very important aspects of the prosecution of this case. Now, I know that we have a lot of video already that was released. There's probably tons more. They're going to have all his movements while he was in New York. They're going to come up with, I won't say every minute of his movements, but they're going to come up with a lot more of his movements for the 10 days that he was in New York. Now we're going to be able to track with his cell phone. That's going to also help to recover more evidence and more video. Again, if there is a conspiracy, if someone else is involved in this, now we have a possible federal statute that can be instituted where he can be taken into federal court. So there's a lot of moving parts to this investigation. Once we have all of the questions answered, we have all of the details, we have all of the information, we have all of the evidence. Once everything is put together, then we'll know where this case is going. We'll know how strong it is, and we'll know what jurisdiction is going to take the prosecution of this perpetrator. If in fact, and I'll say it again because we don't have 100% confirmation yet, if in fact this is the perpetrator, which that's the way it's looking.
100%. Almighty Zeus from the chat 2666. From your experience and the details we have so far, what are the odds this was an inside job planned by either a coworker or perhaps an angry family member? You know, Almighty Zeus, I think that this was a planned hit, and I think more people are involved than the person that we saw in all those photos. I think he had help. The person you see on the screen is on, you know, they're going to try to prove the case against him that he was the shooter. But I do not believe he worked alone. I think he was in New York City for 10 days, stalking this guy, reconning this guy, finding out this guy, the Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, his schedule. This backpack was all over the media, was all everywhere. So everyone knows that. And then we have these different photos. And many of you people pointed out very well, because the true crime community is really interested in true crime, that he's got different jackets on. It's a different guy. No, he changed his clothes. And that will also help if he's wearing another one of the jackets, because they found clothing inside this backpack when it was recovered, right? And I know everyone wants to hear the pop culture stuff like, what was the Monopoly money about? Well, obviously he was trying to make some kind of political statement, right? Perhaps they lifted fingerprints off the Monopoly money. That it's possible to do that. So now
there could be touch
or DNA.
Yeah.
So now many people will think, oh, they got him. The investigation's over. That couldn't be further from the truth. The investigation, 80%, you got 80% left. 20% was the preliminary. Now 80% is crossing your T's, dotting your I's, connecting the evidence together, and making sure that you got a solid case against this guy. And again, try to find out if there is anyone else involved, and if you find out there was, who are they? And then go after them too. Phil.
Yeah, I agree with you, Billy. Like you just said, about 20% of the case, the investigation has been done. There's still 80% left. I agree with that 100%. With regard to motive and who's responsible, I think a lot of the scenarios are still on the table. I'm pretty certain, though, that the NYPD, who's investigating this case, has a pretty good idea of the direction with regard to the motive, who's responsible. I think that they're going to be able to come up with that. Again, what we know, we don't know if it's related to the healthcare industry exactly. Was this a red herring to point to that? Or is there some other nefarious reason that he was killed, whether it be an inside job in the company that he worked for? Was it a family member or something related to his personal life? I think, in my opinion, at this point, it seems like it's going in the direction of an anti-healthcare activist sort of scenario where there could be a group of people that are anti-healthcare because of the way the insurance industry is run, and perhaps maybe discussions are going on in the dark web, in these chat rooms or something of that nature. Or there's people that, you know, very, very unhappy. I mean, if you just look at the chat, you see that there's a large amount of anti-healthcare insurance company vitriol that's going on in our chat as well as all over social media. So perhaps there is motivation on his part by other people. Whether or not he got direct help, I guess that's going to be determined as well. Bill, you and I both feel that it almost seems like there is direct help. However, there could be indirect help too. Maybe I'm visiting somebody in New York and they're kind of helping him along the way without knowing what he was up to. Those things have to be figured out and deciphered, but we're going to know. We're going to find out. These questions will definitely be answered.
Jack Hilger from the chat just happened to have fake IDs and a suppressor after pulling off the Great Escape. A hitter like this doesn't eat at McD's. That's from the same point of view of someone would say a hitter like this doesn't stay at a youth hostel. So you're wrong on both statements. He's eating at a Mickey D's and he stayed at a youth hostel. If he was a big hitter, he would have stayed at, $1,000 a night hotel, but he didn't. He stayed at $110 a night youth hostel.
Let me make another point too, Billy. Just because he's in a McDonald's doesn't mean he's sucking down quarter pounders and Big Macs. You can go in there for a cup of coffee. They have a salad. You could eat French fries. You could eat things that are not quote unquote junk food in a McDonald's as well. I mean, he could have went in there for a bottle of water. They sell water there too. So we can't jump to conclusions. The profile of this guy is maybe he's a Starbucks, coffee, and maybe a water and a power bar. I get it. But if he's on the run, and I said this before, and Bill, you might agree with me, if he's on the run, you go into any port during the storm. If the guy's hungry and the only access he has to is a McDonald's where he's not going to be, maybe on spotlight, so to speak, and he's videotaped in a Starbucks, maybe he wants to stay out of a Starbucks. So we don't know why he was there. What was the purpose? Perhaps he went in there to use the restroom and maybe didn't even buy anything. So we don't really know.
Someone in the chat just asked, and great point. Benny J. Rogers, is the McDonald's employee.
I was going to bring that up.
Reward, yeah, absolutely. And the reward's like $60,000, 50,000 put up by the FBI and 10,000 put up by the NYPD Police Foundation. So it's no small pound. And a lot of people in the chat say, "Oh, he's a rat." He's like, "Look, you're a good citizen. You see something, you say something, right? Do you want this guy or whoever he represents to shoot another person that maybe has a job that you don't like?" If we condone assassination, what's next? So let's see.
Billy, with regard to the reward, I agree. I think that person is eligible for that reward. I'm just shocked and surprised that United Healthcare didn't put out a bigger reward sooner. I really feel, and I know I'm kind of talking against United Healthcare, and there's plenty of people doing that, but they should have stepped forward with a larger reward. I mean, if this guy is the CEO of the company, I'm just shocked that they didn't. I mean, $60,000 is a lot of money, and that usually does open doors. And this sounds like somebody that wasn't looking for the reward, just called based on what they knew about the case and probably saw it on the news and all. So let's see how that plays out.
Absolutely. Carol Grayston, thank you so much for the £2 super sticker. Yeah, at one point during the show, we had over 10,000 people in the chat, and that's a great sign for us. Lula Morocco is in the chat. DNA, it's dynamite. Yeah, the DNA is going to nail him. I mean, the gun itself too. Like what? And the fact, first of all, folks, one thing we didn't bring up, and this is very important from an identification perspective, is that based on this photo right here, guess what's going to happen to him from an investigative perspective? When he gets back to New York, he's going to be put in a lineup. And guess who's going to view the lineup? The woman behind that counter at the hostel, as well as his roommates. Do you think they won't be able to pick him out because he had this little mask on? I think they will be able to pick him out. So they do what's an old-fashioned lineup, and boom. I think you could even ID the guy if he had a mask like this on. So, Phil, that's an investigative tool that law enforcement uses. He'll be put in a lineup. And guess what? Not that they need it, because they'll have DNA, they'll have his fingerprints, they'll have all this other evidence. But that'll nail him to the cross. Phil.
It's just going to be another piece of evidence in the mounting amounts of circumstantial evidence, so to speak. And now we talked about on yesterday's show, we wanted direct evidence. Thank God that gun was found, if in fact that is the gun that is responsible for the killing of Brian Thompson, because now we have even more direct evidence. We're going to have the shell casings we talked about, the spent shells. We're going to have the bullets if they're recovered. So all of those things are coming together. Like you said earlier, Billy, it's about 20% done, this investigation. There's still 80% to go. And some of the things that are going to be going forward, like you said, identification processes and procedures with regard to a lineup. That woman that saw his face, yes, I think they probably will do a lineup and say, is this the guy that you was presented to you on that day in question in the hostel that you asked to show his face? Or, I want to see your handsome smile, whatever was said between the two. And then he pulls the mask down. Definitely sounds like something that will be done. There's other reasons to do the identification, because we're going to be mapping out all the different moves that he made, that he stood in this hostel. And, so we're going to want to cement in that, yes, in fact, the guy who was taken into custody in Pennsylvania, yes, that's the same guy that I saw in the hostel on the 24th of November or whenever it was that took place. So all of these things, identification process, these are all the different things that law enforcement utilizes to arrest and convict perpetrators of crimes and homicides.
From the chat, Viv Photography. Now media is saying he had a manifesto on healthcare companies with him. Wow.
I did hear that as well. I
mean, if that's true, that is it's so powerful. It's such a powerful piece of evidence. Folks, a lot of you people in the chat, you don't like the popo, you don't like the police, you don't like the establishment. That word establishment is from the 60s, but a lot of you guys are lost in a time warp from the 60s. You don't like the police, that's fine. But use common sense. Evidence connects the dots here. They will have the evidence to 100% prove that this is the guy, this is the shooter. If you don't accept that, hopefully you won't be called to be on the jury. Phil.
Yeah, Billy, I find it a little bit mind-boggling sometimes when people take things that we, call common sense, or, there's that old acronym, keep it simple, stupid, KISS, K-I, keep it simple, stupid. And in this particular case, there's so much evidence being uncovered. And when it comes to that point where he's going to be arrested and tried and all of that, if you really are, you're being open-minded about it and you're being logical about it and you hear all the things, I think you will not be able to come to any other conclusion than the jury will come to. And I've been privy to trials. I've sat in trials. Recently, I sat in a murder trial about 7-8 years ago, and I watched the jury. Juries pay attention to the specifics of the case. They really do. And when you're given that assignment, so to speak, you're on jury duty, and you have the unbelievable amount of pressure that you have to make a decision based on evidence, or whether a person is going to spend the rest of their life in jail, and possibly whether that person will face the death penalty in some cases. So I think people, they take that very seriously. That's a big amount of pressure that's on you, and they're going to look at it logically. They're going to examine it, and they will either find guilty or not guilty. And you have to take all your prejudices, all your feelings about the healthcare system and all of those things, and you have to look at just the evidence. And once it's presented, and it seems like it's going to be very powerful in this case, I believe you'll wind up with a conviction.
New York Turtle 89, thank you so much for the $2 super sticker. Keep it honest as always. Well, thank you so much. From the chat, I say what you want to say. Okay, so it's only one gun on the planet like this. No. You are the student that's not paying attention in class, because we explained to you how they can connect this gun 100%. It is the gun, not a gun like it, but the gun. And I went into it at the very beginning of the show. The spent shells on the ground, with which they have 3 of them, have extractor marks that will 1,000% match up to this gun. There is also a firing pin that hits the primer that is also on the spent shell that will 1,000% match up to this gun. Class is over. Pay attention. All right.
Billy, I had a case years ago, over 20 years ago, where a gun was used for shooting, and they changed the barrel on the gun. However, the shell casings, the markings, the striations matched up to the gun. So they were able to change the barrel. However, they weren't able to change the way that the bullet is ejected, and it has a unique marking on it, on the shell casings. And listen, we know that there's not just one of those guns in the world. we have a clear video, a clear picture of the gun that was used. So now if we have the gun recovered that matches that, that's one part of it. Now we're going to have where was it purchased? Perhaps the perpetrator in this case purchased it in his own name. We'll have that. And then we're going to have like you said, the ballistics that's recovered at the scene. Will it match that gun? In my opinion, if it's the gun, it's going to match.
Phil, this is from Fox News.
On live now from Fox, but we do have some breaking news again. So it's back-to-back breaking news that we are bringing to you in connection to the CEO murder of the United Healthcare CEO. A person has been taken into custody in Altoona, Pennsylvania, in connection. So this is what police are saying. A source with knowledge of the investigation into the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson told Fox News that a person fitting the suspect's description has been taken into custody at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania. The person has a similar gun to the one used in the shooting last Wednesday, the source added. Police tell Fox News that a person at the McDonald's recognized the individual from the wanted posters of the suspect and then alerted law enforcement. When police arrived, they spotted the person and found a weapon believed to be the one used in the murder here. So obviously this investigation has hit its 6th day as that manhunt continues. The city in Pennsylvania was Altoona. It's a city located about 100 miles east of Pittsburgh. Thompson died last Wednesday at a hotel in New York City. The suspect in the shooting was last seen at a bus station in Upper Manhattan. So again, we are following back-to-back breaking news for you on live now from Fox. Earlier today, police NYPD detectives were once again in the area of Central Park looking for clues. Remember on Friday, they found a bag that was from the suspect there. And inside that bag was Monopoly money. Many sources believe and experts believe that had something to do with trying to egg on the police and the investigation. But again, we are learning of this breaking news. A person has been taken into custody, matching the description of the suspect as it entered its 6th day. So we got a lot of moving parts here with this story. The news broke, of course, on December 4th when Thompson was shot outside of the hotel in Manhattan, and that really stepped up security not only for United Healthcare employees, but also other insurance carriers, not knowing what the full scope of this shooting was. But of course, NYPD coming from the very beginning saying it was a targeted attack. And now we wait for more information from Pennsylvania authorities as well as the NYPD as they continue to investigate as well. So we will continue to monitor that one here for you, all right here on Live Now from Fox.
So that's giving a synopsis of what's going on. And, you know, the investigation, the follow-up investigation is going to be huge, of course, because this is a big case. They would like nothing more than to be able to connect others to this. If it is, in fact, a conspiracy and there is others involved, the NYPD, the FBI, the ATF, all these federal agencies in conjunction with working with the NYPD will find this out in the investigative process. Bill.
Yeah, Billy, there's a lot more to go in this case, obviously. And I'm just curious to see, like I said, what's going to play out with this guy's background. Who is he? Where was he from? Was he from Pennsylvania? Is he from somewhere else? He was on the run, obviously. He knew that the walls were closing in on him. He got a little bit too careless today, went into that McDonald's, was picked up by the employee as looking like the person that's the photo's been circulated everywhere. So we're going to get to the bottom of all of those questions. I'm very interested to hear how this is going to play out, who he is, and what this manifesto says. That's going to be important. They're reporting that perhaps he had a manifesto on him with regard to healthcare, maybe specifically United Healthcare. And what does that manifesto say? What is that going to lead to? Who is he also communicating with regard to the same feeling. I mean, there's just so many people in the country that are angry against the healthcare in this country being by insurance companies turning people down for care, and then it leads to tragic outcomes and results where people die or are left, incapacitated with their, their health issues. So the one thing that's going to come out of this, if there's anything positive, is it shine the light on the healthcare system. And I said this yesterday, and I'm going to say it again. We need to focus on electing people in politics that are going to fight for the victims of this horrible healthcare system that's going on in this country. These insurance companies, they do knock people when they are in need of care, and there are catastrophic results. So we have to maybe regulate them a little more. They flood politicians with donations, and so that's got a lot to do with it. But I guess that's a discussion for another day. Let's just get to the bottom of what's going on today and the fluid things that are happening with the apprehension of a person in Altoona, Pennsylvania today with regard to the assassination and murder of Brian Thompson.
Sonia Lynn, the coat was sold out on Macy's website with over 7,000 purchases. I mean, what does that tell you?
That doesn't say good things about our culture, I'll tell you, but what can I say?
Shaboogies. Don't think anyone should be murdered, but Brian Thompson had thousands of lives on his hands.
There's something to be said about
We've
that.
heard that before, and something. Look, we live in the same world as you. I have kids. My son pays over $1,000 a month for his health insurance for his wife, and that's through a company-sponsored health insurance. So I feel you. I really do. That's not acceptable. That's outrageous.
The scary thing about that, Billy, to me is, okay, your son's paying that kind of money. I know people are paying $2,000 and $3,000 for healthcare. Now, God forbid you become sick with an ailment, and then all of a sudden, well, we can't cover this, we can't cover that. There was just recently a thing in New York where they were talking about they were only going to pay for a certain amount of anesthesia if a person was going to go through an operation, and then it was quickly turned over after this murder happened. So again, there's got to be reforms in this industry. We're not going to be able to help everyone when they do these reforms, but has to be looked at strong and hard. There's a new administration coming into office with regard to the president on a national level, in January. So let's see if maybe they'll look at this, take a look at it, and maybe reform some of these things that there's so many people that are outraged by what's taking place in the insurance and healthcare industry.
For the love of all that is good, thank goodness the number of decent people are higher than the number of morons supporting this murderer. Well said. Well said. I think that needed to be said. I also want to thank Maui Swift, who donated 5 police off-the-cuff memberships to some lucky recipients. Thank you so much, Maui Swift.
Long-time supporter, Maui Swift.
A huge supporter of this channel. This is CNN, what they reported on this case.
News in the case of the murdered health insurance CEO in New York City last week. Police are now questioning a man in Pennsylvania in connection with the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. CNN's Bryn Gingras and John Miller join me now from New York. Bryn, I'm going to start with you. What do we know?
So we know right now, Dana, that there is someone that is being questioned by investigators right now in Altoona, Pennsylvania. This person is 26 years old, according to sources telling John Miller. We've learned that they actually got a tip from someone at a nearby McDonald's in that area who said, hey, this guy looks like the person that's in all those photos that have been circulating. And that's how he was brought in for further questioning. And in doing so, according to sources telling John, that they found a lot of evidence that could point in the right investigation for authorities at this point. They found a gun that resembles the one that was used in the murder last Wednesday. They found a suppressor, which is basically another word for a silencer. It muffles the sound of a gunshot. We know that was also used in the killing on Wednesday. And they found a number of fake IDs with this person. One of those, according to sources, the NYPD does believe was used here in New York City. Now, also, if you remember, we reported that investigators believed their person who was responsible for this killing used a fake ID to check into a hostel in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. So it's possible that is one of those fake IDs. We've also learned from sources that there were some sort of documents that were with this person that is, again, brought in for questioning at this moment. And they're still going through all of those paperwork to figure out exactly what is said in those documents. But again, these are significant developments in this case, in this manhunt that has stretched far past New York City limits. And now we know that someone is in custody. Someone is being questioned with authorities right now in Altoona, Pennsylvania.
Okay. And John, let's go to you. You have so much of this excellent reporting. Add to the color and the context and the information that Bryn just started to give us.
So, Dana, this starts as a very routine day in a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, which has like 3 McDonald's. But an employee there looks at this person and has been seeing on CNN and everywhere else these photos from the NYPD of this masked person with the hood, where they're saying, look beyond New York, because we think the person has left the city. And she believes that this person resembles the photos that have been put out. She calls 911, gets the Altoona PD. They respond to the McDonald's. They engage this individual. And as they get him to identify himself and look through things, they find a gun, they find a silencer, they find multiple false IDs. And when they begin to compare those notes with the police in New York, they find out that one of those IDs matches the name, perhaps even the one we're looking at, that he used a fake New Jersey driver's license to check into that hostel in Upper Manhattan. So along with all of that, there are some documents that the police said seem to be relevant to this case. I think we would stop short right now because we don't have enough information of calling that a manifesto, but we are told by investigators they believe he's carrying documents that may relate to motive.
Okay, I understand you're saying stop short now with regard to those documents, because obviously this is an ongoing investigation, as your former ilk used to say, John Miller. But talk about this with regard to the decision that police made. It was on Friday that we were talking shortly after the police decided to, in your words, crowdsource and put the picture of this individual out publicly. We don't know yet if this is the guy, but if it is, that tactic was the game changer.
Well, it was. And I mean, it hangs on a couple of things. One, finally being able, after this massive video canvas, using so many detectives, to find that single moment, and you're looking at it right now, that single moment where he dropped the mask, he still had the hood on, and you could see that face and $1 million smile as he was talking to that hotel clerk at the hostel and asking people, if you know this person, if you see this face, no matter where you are in the country, we're looking for that call. So that worked today.
And John, with regard to the documents and the motive, is there anything else that your sources are leaning into? We know that, first of all, the bullet casing, which you talked about again last week, with some etchings on them suggesting the idea that this could be related to the United CEO's job, and the idea that it is health insurance, which is not exactly a popular industry right now. And then, of course, what happened over the weekend with the backpack that was found in Central Park and Monopoly money inside.
So the bullets had the writing on them: deny, delay, depose. Theoretically, these are the 3 Ds that critics use against the insurance industry when they say they're trying to slow down payments on claims and fight those with members of their customer base. So that's one, the monopoly money, perhaps a sign of greed. But when you look at what does this mean today, they have a person in custody. They're questioning that person. They have a gun. They have multiple false IDs, including one that may be relevant. So if you take that together and then say, what does the NYPD have to bring to this? They have DNA recovered from a water bottle that the suspect bought in a Starbucks, and a power bar that they recovered parts of or the wrappers of, and a phone where they have a viable fingerprint. So that's a lot of forensic evidence that they can run against the fingerprints of the individual in custody, the DNA that they will get a search warrant to get from him if he doesn't give it voluntarily. And if in fact he's carrying documents that relate to this, a weapon that may be matched ballistically to the things that were recovered at the scene, including the shell casings and the bullets, this could come together very quickly, fairly quickly, and very solidly in terms of evidence.
So, folks, we had discussed all of the evidence that John Miller, who used to be a deputy commissioner on the NYPD, is discussing. We're in no way convicting this guy, but we're saying that he has in his possession all of the evidence that they were looking for that can connect him to this crime. And some of it can be connected scientifically. And everyone likes science, of course, because science doesn't lie. DNA doesn't lie. Fingerprints don't lie. Ballistics evidence does not lie. So some of you think we're getting too excited over this, but he has all of the things on him in his possession that we were hoping for. We said earlier this morning in the conversation with each other that if they don't recover this gun, this is going to be a very, very difficult case. Phil.
Yes, Billy, we did have that discussion this morning based on the fact that we felt if the gun isn't recovered, that there's going to be just circumstantial evidence that may not be as powerful as if the gun is recovered. And I said I really believe that he was going to take the gun with him since he traveled with it in a backpack or however he had it from the bus trip. And I said, why would he leave it behind? There's really no reason, especially and specifically that gun is very unique. So it probably was purchased in his own with his own identification. So he's going to take it with him. Lo and behold, he had it on him when he's arrested. Like I said, if in fact this is the perpetrator of this crime, which we do believe it is. But I want to make another quick point, Billy. A lot of people, they have a bitch with the healthcare industry and insurance companies. And I get it. There's reason to be upset about people being denied. But when you take this individual and you see the video of him shooting Brian Thompson, there was a woman just a few feet away. Perhaps she could have ran right into the line of fire and innocently be killed. And we don't know if he was going to target other individuals. And in another shooting, perhaps someone else innocently could have been killed. Now, if you believe that Brian Thompson deserves to be shot, I don't agree with that. But what about the innocent people that are out there, like that woman that was in the video that could have ran right in front of that line of fire? Or perhaps, a bullet doesn't have a tracking device on it to go for the person that you're aiming at. Bullet can stray off and hit someone, a block away, or go through a wall and hit someone sitting down having a cup of coffee or something of that nature. So we took a very dangerous individual off the street, if in fact this is the perpetrator. So I'm okay with that. We have to stop and think. This is a dangerous, dangerous person that killed someone. And whether or not you believe that Brian Thompson deserved it, there's innocent people in the world that could have gotten hurt with this. So I'm glad we have that gun off the streets. I'm glad we have that individual off the streets.
From the chat, Peter Never, XVT, W4L, thank you for the $5 super sticker. Thank you for the compliment. Good job reporting. Folks, we got on the air as soon as we heard that this was breaking. Undoubtedly, very accurate, more will come out from the investigation site, and we will report that. We're going to be going live on the air tonight at 8 p.m. as more information comes in about this arrest. And we believe, and many good people believe, that this is a good thing. There are also many people that believe, I thought it was rather disgusting that people just thought that it was good that Brian Thompson was murdered. I cannot understand that. But, people want to talk like that. That's fine. Phil, your final thoughts.
My final thoughts are: stay tuned, guys. This is very fluid. It's a active investigation. We have a lot of questions. We're going to be going over some of those things tonight at 8 p.m. And I just want to make a point. You may or may not disagree, may or may not agree with what we're saying as police officers being in law enforcement. But just take this into account. On this channel, you're going to get experience, you're going to get the facts, and you're not going to get any bullshit in plain English. We talk about things that we know are taking place. We know about the things that we would be doing if we were investigating these cases. And that's what Police Off the Cuff is all about. It's all about integrity. It's all about what we do. And you may or may not agree at times, but the bottom line is this is the way it goes.
Folks, again, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, hit that like button, share us with your friends and your family. As Phil said, we're going to get back on the air this evening with an update on this case. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm Bill Cannon on behalf of myself and retired Detective Phil Grimaldi. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day and God bless.
Stay safe, everyone, and stay tuned.
One episode just ain't enough.